Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Your Confidence Unleashed. These are conversations all about how to break through your limiting beliefs to own your unique magic, unleash it into the world with unwavering confidence, and create the life you've always wanted. So, we are so very excited to have Jazze Jervis here with us today. Welcome, Jazze.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to keep these conversations just really juicy and jam-packed with value. So in the interest of that, people can find you later and learn all about your story and all about who you are. So we'll just really briefly tell everyone, who are you and what's the difference that you're making in the world every day?
Absolutely. Love that. In juicy and jam-packed. I'm here for it.
Awesome.
So my name is Jazze Jervis. I mentor women to 6 and 7-figure success through mindset, strategy, energetics. And I feel like what I'm really here to do, because look, there's probably 1,000 bios that all say the same thing to that,
Right.
is really simplifying things, like simplifying what it looks like to live a life that is fully powered and abundant in all areas, not just our business. And I'm really passionate about creating business models and businesses that are really desire-led and strengths-led, because I see that as being the most sustainable way and the most aligned way to do things. So I'm really about finding what works for you, your unique energy, your unique style, your unique vision. And I'm really passionate about business being a co-creation that we are in relationship with, as opposed to this like extension of ourselves personally, which ends up in us being so enmeshed and attached to things, and also hard to access confidence and trust when we are just so closely attached. So I'm really here to show what it looks like to be in a really beautiful relationship and co-creation with business, but still feel really detached as well.
I love that. Wow. I love that description of what you do. And I must say, I've been kind of following you and fangirling you for a long time. And you truly embody all of that you just said. I mean, it's something that you can see the difference between the people on the internet who are talking about these things and the people who are truly living them from the get-go, especially when you talked about simplifying your life. I mean, you it seems that you have all of these systems in place in your life, right? To really make it just flow.
And just letting it be easy. I think as ego-driven humans, we are going to sabotage, we are going to try and make things harder. And so it's this just like consistently coming back to, how would this look if it were easy? How would this look if it felt good? And letting ourselves have that. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit, and I know everyone else would too, about your journey in confidence. So, I imagine that the woman that you are today is not exactly how you started in terms of confidence and showing up the way that you do. So maybe you can tell us about a time when you felt really low and maybe depleted of confidence. And then about another time when you felt totally on top of the world and really empowered in your confidence.
Beautiful question. And it's really interesting because I think on the outside, people that have known me at any stage of my life will say that I am a confident person. So from the outside, I wouldn't imagine that there would be anyone that would say that I am not confident.
Wow.
But I want to share a little bit about that, because it was almost not totally real confidence. And I want to kind of share about that, because I feel like this is something that comes up a lot. When I was going into high school, my best friend from primary school, who I'd pretty much been best friends with for 7 or 8 years, decided she didn't want to be friends with me anymore. And I only realized just how much that affected me in the past few years. That rejection, that trauma, that going into high school, going to a completely new school and being rejected by one of the only things that was, real, and
Yeah.
true for me, that really led to a lot of need for external validation, a lot of doing, overworking. I then spent, the next sort of 15 years, you know, playing professional basketball, focusing on my studies, then going to law school, then starting a business, then like working myself into the ground. And this is what has really led to this focus on desire led and strengths led, because what I realized is what I was building was not true to me, and I didn't actually feel confident to do something that was truly me, my own voice, my own brand, just me, intuitively led. I didn't have the confidence to do that. And I only realized that to be honest, in the past like 12 to 18 months, and I've had these moments of like in and out when I've kind of gone back into that doubt and that, lack of self-trust, which I think that's where confidence is really connected for me personally, is trust. And I only realized, having, built something that I looked at and thought, oh, this from the outside looks phenomenal, looks amazing. Everyone wants it, like, oh, I admire that. I admire this. This is, you're so confident. And what it was deep down was just trying to fit in and trying to do what other people were doing, because that's how I connect, and that's how I'm not rejected. And so, yeah, I realized this and decided to then put my blinkers on a little bit, focus on deepening my own creative process, which took time, listening to my intuition. What does my intuition even sound like? What does it look like? How does it move through me? And I explored many different modalities and human design and things like this to help this process, because I was so, since that time, would have been 11 or 12, I've just been disassociated and disconnected. Yeah. And I only really realized, a couple of years into my business, and what resulted from just deciding to put the blinkers on and come back to me, which has happened over a number of years, is a life and business model that feels really true for me. And I still have my moments, but for me, this like deepening of my relationship to myself and to my business and to my intuition is where this true confidence now comes from.
Wow, what a powerful realization. Like,
Yeah,
those moments in our childhood truly impact our entire lives. And it takes time sometimes for those things to come up. Do you feel like that memory was a little bit repressed, or you just didn't give it the importance that maybe it held in your life?
totally repressed, and
Wow.
showing up in really different, ways, like, you know, how that was connected to then creating something that, was successful. And that's the thing, is that what I was doing was still working.
Right.
It was, on the outside, it was, success. And even on the
Right.
inside, I was like, yep, I'm ticking the boxes, right? I'm ticking the boxes. And
Mm.
what I realized is that there was just a gap. There was still something that didn't feel quite right. And when I started to explore it and I started to look at it, and I realized just how much I was measuring my confidence and my success based on what other people were doing, I explored that. And I was like, where does that come from? Because I also feel like I've been someone that's just done my own thing, walked to the beat of my own drum. Like, that also felt true for me. So I was
Mhm.
like, why am I just in this constant state of comparison, and like, why am I not in this place and this person's over here, and just constantly measuring myself
Yeah.
against other people? I realized, wow, like the need for that external validation comes from feeling so rejected and not realizing that this was playing out in all areas of my life. And I'm grateful for the experience, because there's no way I would be where I am right now without it.
Right.
But it just goes to show that, things can look a certain way on the outside. Like I said, I would be shocked if anyone said she's not confident. But it wasn't real. It wasn't truth. It wasn't authentic. And it wasn't that it was put on. It was just, oh, now
You
I know
didn't
what it
know.
actually feels like. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. And especially that it was just a realization, like you said, that it wasn't something that you weren't faking it till you made it, or you weren't, I mean, it felt like you were truly doing what you were
Yeah.
supposed to be doing. And the journey is just that, right? That we never know when we're going to be looking back and saying, it's really interesting that I was doing what I was doing at that time. It felt good. It felt like I was where I was supposed to be, but the evolution is such that we get to keep growing and get to keep evolving and
Mm.
discovering those things about ourselves. It's so powerful.
Exactly. And I think as well, not making things mean anything,
Mm,
like I think it would be really easy for me to have spiraled into, you know, like self-doubt and like,
mm.
and just, oh my gosh, I've been carrying this for so long. And imagine how my life would be different if I didn't have this. And what if, what if, what if, what if? But I chose to not be in that. And I chose to just be grateful that I could now see it and that it had come to light at a time when I could actually deal with it. And I had the tools and the connections and the space to actually explore that. Because if it had come at a different time, maybe I, would have ignored it.
And
Mm.
the forgiveness piece maybe was a part of it too, is what I mean. Did you feel like you needed to really forgive her or forgive yourself as a part of your healing process?
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. Um, I think we all I don't know, we all have such individual experiences and, things drop in at certain times and sometimes things need to happen that aren't pleasurable and enjoyable for that to happen. And I think, yeah, I think I needed to have a moment with her, with that inner child, with that version of me to
Yes.
say, it's okay. Like that was actually not a nice thing to happen. And it's okay that you've held this and suppressed it for so long. And now we get to heal it together. Like walk with me.
It's incredible when those things show up in our lives too, when our subconscious mind feels safe enough to bring those things up or feels like we're ready enough to heal those things. That's so
Mhm.
powerful. So then
Totally.
it sounds like that maybe you're at the peak of your confidence now that you've really discovered that, and you feel more you. That's what I'm hearing, at least. You
Mm,
think that's true?
totally. Yes, that feels very true. I'm in a very creative process at the moment in my business. We've got something, big coming up in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. And I said to my team today that this experience, this offer feels the most me and the most aligned. And it's interesting because it came in around October last year and it's now May. So it's been there for a really long time. And every time I went to kind of flesh out the details, there was just something. It was like, nah, it's not quite there. And we ended up creating a different experience off it, not feeling right, and it just sat there and sat there. And I don't think if I hadn't had gone through a lot of this healing, that I don't think I would have given it the space because I wouldn't have trusted myself. I would have been hanging on to it thinking, oh, but I've had this idea. And if I don't do it, then it's going to move on to someone
Yeah,
else. And
right.
I'd be forcing it. Yeah. And it's like, instead it's felt like even, the analogy that I've been using with my team is like birth,
Mm,
and birthing, baby and birthing a child. It's like, you can't just decide at 6 months that it's happening now when your baby's not ready, and it's felt like this really beautiful process. And so much of pregnancy and birth is trust and surrender and just knowing that you're going to be supported and you're going to be able to do it. And all you can be focused on right now is the present. And I just don't feel like I would be in this space had I not gone through this and realized, wow, I've spent 15 years doing something that is not right for me. Great. Let's like shift this trajectory.
yeah, time to shift. And it's a
Mm,
gift and you get to be grateful
yeah.
for it, even though it feels like a long
Yes,
process.
exactly.
Well, so as you're talking about like trusting yourself and you knew that it wasn't quite the right time, there's also that notion of like taking imperfect action and
Mm,
sort of going with things when they're messy and not quite right. How do you find that balance of when you've just got to like go and put it out there and launch it out into the world versus when
mm,
it's when it's not quite right, or needing to sit with it a little bit longer, needing to mull it over a little bit longer?
It's a really beautiful question. And I was having a conversation with a client about this actually this week. And I said to her, for me, it always comes back to where is like the values alignment as part of this kind of conversation. So for example, with this offer, the reason why I didn't move forward with it still feeling not quite right, is because like from a values perspective, I want to put out something that feels really true and also is very intentional in terms of what is like the impact for someone coming into this like experience. And if it doesn't feel like a hell yes in that respect, like it just, I couldn't access that. And I just couldn't energetically get behind it. And the same thing with like investing or whatever it is, it's always like, like one of the reasons why I think that we don't always receive the transformation or the experience from some kind of investment that we desire is because we're making decisions that's really led by ego and really led by, I guess, circumstance, like what's happening currently, as opposed to something much deeper around, do I feel like there is a values match here, whether it's a person that we're investing in, whatever it is, whether putting out an offer, it's like, does this feel in integrity, like in my heart space, And so I think that's really different to when things, so for this offer that's now really in integrity and it's just flowed through me exactly the way that I knew it would if I had waited. It still feels imperfect. It's still an offer that I haven't seen done. It's still different to what we usually do. And so there's still all of these unknowns and all of this like kind of winging it energy, but it feels in integrity. And that is how I see that difference between, we're never going to have a guarantee. We're never going to know that things are going to be perfect. Things will never be perfect. But that's where I feel like I can take that imperfect action and, move forward, even when things don't feel guaranteed, even when there's not a complete plan, because I know in my heart and on a values level that there is a match here, and this isn't a good, true, authentic, energetic exchange.
Wow, that's a really beautiful way to look at it. Like it gets to be both, right? It gets to be perfect in that it feels aligned, and totally messy in that you don't know what's going to happen with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's kind of life, right? And how we how we have to move through all of it.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh,
Exactly.
that's awesome. So in this process, if you have always sort of felt like a confident person and have always been really seen as a confident person, do you think that is something that really has drawn people to you, in that they sort of know that you know what you're doing, or it feels like you've got their back, and maybe that they can borrow your confidence a little bit from you?
It's a really nice question. Yeah, I think so. I think confidence is activating, and I think confidence feels safe sometimes as well. That confident activating energy is like, oh, this feels nice. It feels nice to be around this. And I think when you have, had experiences where, or perhaps consider yourself to be not a confident person, that I think that is, I think that is attractive, and I think that is magnetizing. And so, yeah, I think that does play a part. And I think for me, confidence is, and I said this before around confidence really feeling connected to self-trust for me. But I think for me also, confidence is uniqueness, and confidence is like being really trusting of your own processes and your own thoughts. Like I, even in the context of like content creation as an example, something that I share with my clients, that the reason why I consistently put out content is because I trust my ideas. I've practiced having an idea, deciding that, well, if it's useful for me, it will be useful for someone else, and taking action, even though I'm like, I don't even know if I'm articulating this right, or like, like, of course, there's a lot of these unknowns, but that's where the consistent content comes from, not from more ideas than someone else, or this crazy brain or anything. It's just like, I have the idea and I trust it, and I go with it, And so I think that's how I really see confidence, is like just a really deep level of self-trust, but like a trust of your process and your truth being the way forward.
It's really interesting, because what I heard in that was that the trusting yourself came with just a really simple conversation that you had with yourself around, if it works for me, maybe it'll work for somebody else. If it helps me, maybe it'll help somebody else. It doesn't have to be like this all knowing, I know that I'm powerful enough to change the world. It can be something so simple like that.
Yes.
And then build over time, right? As you trust yourself, as you release the things, as you see the evidence that comes back to you, that what you are putting out there does resonate with people, and that your experiences do help them, it all builds on itself, right?
Totally. You start to create that evidence, you start to create that evidence that, okay, like this is working, and and until then it's just trust, until there's that evidence, it's just, I'm just going to go with it and hope for the best. And I think that's okay too,
So if someone's out there and they're not even able to access that level of trust, that initial level of trust of hey, if this is how I'm feeling, somebody else must be feeling it too, and maybe it could help somebody. Is there any advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I think for me, and this is what I really accessed at that time of realizing, wow, okay, this is, oh, sorry.
Okay.
This is not what I really deeply feel is true for me, is coming back to nothing is by accident. And so I couldn't access that deep level of self-trust, that following my intuition and accessing that would lead to results, because I thought that that's what I was doing for a really long time, until I realized that I wasn't, so I didn't have any evidence for what it looked like to follow my own kind of creative process and not be measuring myself based on what other people are doing. That was all I had done. And so I didn't have evidence of anything else. And so for me, it was coming back to, and this is where what I was sharing at the start of this conversation really stems from, is realizing that my business is not an extension of me personally. It is an extension of God, source, universal oneness, however we want to describe that energy. And that's not by accident, like the business and the vision and impact that is desired by the business chose me as the vessel, as the conduit, and that isn't by accident. And so while I couldn't access that deep level of self-trust and confidence, what I did anchor into was, I know that nothing is by accident. And I know that this experience is not by accident. I know that me being chosen to deliver these experiences is not by accident. And so I just need to focus on that and come back to that. And slowly the trust started to build and the evidence started to present itself.
That is incredibly powerful. It takes all of it feels like, for me, that it just takes all of the fear away. It's like, if you can just trust that it landed with you for a reason, and that those ideas are coming to you for a reason, and that you're just the vessel, that then it's sort of like, we ask ourselves so often, who am I to do this? Well, who are you not to? It's coming to you for a reason.
Exactly. And I think what happens as part of that conversation too is that the pressure valve kind of releases a bit too, because it's like, yeah, like I've been trusted with this idea, and it's not all on me. It's not this like personal kind of thing. It's like, this is so much greater than human comprehension, and that for me was really helpful to kind of detach and not be so connected and worried about the outcome, because it is so much greater than me, you know, and I think confidence is so much greater than that, you know, what we traditionally associate with confidence. I think it is so much bigger than we can ever logically comprehend.
Totally. Well, and you really experienced that in your recent shift,
Yeah,
that it's more than what you thought it was. And
totally.
so in your confidence journey, you know, you say that you're a person who has always probably felt confident and that other people thought you were confident. Did it start that way in your business as well? I mean, were you just, in terms of actually putting yourself out there and saying that you're going to make this happen, do you feel like you were just confident? I'm trying to figure out how to say this, because most of the women who I've talked to will say that they struggled with confidence in the beginning. And so a lot of them had to rely on courage to come first.
Mm,
Do you
mm.
feel that that played a big part in your story, or do you feel that it was the other way around, that you were just pretty confident and so the courage was natural?
That's a good question. And I think where it came from for me, this like consistent confidence is I just don't think that we fail. Like I just don't, I really believe that in every situation, we're either going to get exactly what we want or better, or it's not going to work out like that. And there will be some kind of silver lining, some kind of lesson, some kind of something to take away from that experience. It's not a failure because it didn't go to plan. It's, again, nothing is by accident. And so I think for me, that's where that kind of consistency to like with consistent confidence has come from is, well, I'm going to be all right either way. And so I might as well give it my all and see what happens. And if I need to learn a lesson here, then I'll learn it and I'll integrate it and I'll move forward and I'll be better off, you know, for that experience. And that's really how I approach everything. And so I think that's where that confidence comes from, is like, well, there's nothing, like if you can approach a situation like that, there's nothing left to do except take action and move forward. So I think that's where it comes from. It hasn't sort of been like, I am a confident person. It's like, it's this, like the way that I see failure and the way that I personally define failure. Like I just don't see that it exists.
It's so funny because I think that everybody can relate to looking back on experiences in their lives and being grateful for them and seeing the lesson in them, and knowing that even though they felt super hard in the moment, that they serve them in some way. Yet we get ourselves into new experiences that feel hard and feel really awful and feel just devastating in the moment. And we can't see that. We can't see it when we're in it, that once we're out of it, we will look back and see that it served us. It's so fascinating.
Totally. And it's hard in the moment. You know, it's not like, you know, things don't go to plan and I'm instantaneously in this energy of, oh, it's okay. You know, like I think that's also gaslighting, you know, and I think it's really important for us to feel our feelings, feel disappointed, feel angry, feel whatever it is we need to feel, but then be able to come back to, you know, what is the lesson that I need to learn here? Like what can I take that is for me as part of this experience?
I love that. Jazze, you've given so much useful information, and just your story is so powerful. I really appreciate this conversation. If you could really make one last thing land with the woman on the other side of the screen who really would love to be able to empower herself to do whatever it is that's on her heart to do, what would you tell her? If you could just kind of grab hold of her and make sure that she got it, what would you tell her?
It's this, I didn't really expect this to have already come up in the conversation, but what I had written down as part of this reflection is this concept that nothing is by accident. Like everything that you need is already within you. Like when you have an idea, when you have a download, when you have an experience, like whatever is going on, we just would not be trusted with that if it wasn't, you know, for us for some particular reason. And that doesn't mean that everything that comes through is something that ends up being actioned either. You know, like I believe that we're in kind of one stream of consciousness. And if I don't action an idea that comes through, it'll move on to someone else and it will be delivered in a more powerful and potent way, you know? And so I'm not attached to things that come and go and things like that. But I do believe that nothing is by accident and that everything that we need in order to live the life that we really desire is already there. And we are born, you know, wealthy, and we are born with desire, and we are born wanting a pleasure filled, desire led life. And it is so safe and so okay for you to pursue that. Because why not? You know, like it's why not? So that is what I really wanted to offer as part of that final reflection is you've got it. Everything's already within you. Nothing is by accident. And so trust that. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. You know, we get to pivot and we get to shift. And I actually think that those are the experiences that have taught me the most in my life. Not all of the good stuff. It's always been the things that have taught me so many lessons. And when we can meet that and when we can embrace that, we stop living in our comfort zone, because we're like, you know what? If we need to move out of our comfort zone, if we need to go through a period of contraction, if we need to have something not go to plan, I know I'm going to be better off for it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful. Thank you so much. And for the people who are just loving everything you're saying and wanting to really get into your world, you have a beautiful gift that you're offering, right? Can you tell us about it, please?
Yes, absolutely. So you've probably got a little bit of a sense based on this conversation here that I am very focused and passionate about like remembering, you know, like coming back to this, everything happens the way that it's meant to. Nothing is by accident. And so we've created the Millionaire Handbook, and this is full of, you know, powerful prompts, really activating self-reflection and kind of soul nudges a little bit. I am not someone that's, you know, here, do this, like this step and that thing. And, you know, like that is part of my work a little bit, but it's really about a remembering. Like this handbook is a remembering, you recognizing your own immense, infinite potential and being able to really anchor deeply into your own authentic truth and voice and message, so that you don't feel, you know, kind of swayed or silenced by other people's success. This is about your own activation and your own remembering. And so there's some really beautiful self exploration prompts in there and questions, and they're things that I've used, you know, as part of this whole journey. So I'm really, really pleased to be able to offer it.
Beautiful. Thank you so very much. This conversation has just been so nourishing, and I know there are so many women who will get so much out of it. So thank you for being here, Jazz.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.